There's a lot of people out there really good at faking and putting on the perfect outside, putting on the perfect image of life is great. And inside there's turmoil and there's hurricanes, there's tsunamis and just all sorts of dark emotion and energy. And if all of that was just open and honest with each other, then it would be very easy to love yourself.
Welcome to Living God's Light, a podcast to help you strengthen your spirituality and your connection with God. We are so happy to have you as a part of the Living God's Light family.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Living God's Light podcast. I'm Lynn Taylor.
I'm Vinney Tolman.
I'm Alan Smith.
I'm Lindsay Young.
So today we're going to talk about the really easy topic of loving everyone.
Yeah, that's so easy.
Why do you laugh, Alan?
Well, have you met me?
Yes, I have. And I still love you. So, Vinney, why is loving everyone one of the principles in the light after death?
The way it was shown to me is that all of us are fingers on God's hand. That all of us, that each individual are fingers on God's hands. And that for us to hate or hurt or harm or not forgive another is to hate or harm or not forgive ourselves. And I know that's hard for our brains to understand, but that's the way it is. And as we understand that, sometimes the best way for us to get what we feel we need is to give exactly what we need to someone else. And in doing so, we actually start feeling fulfilled and feeling the fulfillment of what we need. And it's an amazing principle. You have to see it to believe it. You have to actually go out and do it. I had an amazing mentor of mine that I worked with her for a few years, and she told me, Vinney, to not forgive is to drink a bottle of poison and to hope someone else dies. And to me, that's an extra added element to that loving everyone, is to love them, you have to truly forgive them. And in essence, forgive you.
I love that. Lindsay, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I was talking to a friend the other day and we were talking about forgiveness and what forgiveness really is, or just the breakdown of what it is to forgive. Because through some experiences recently for me, I've learned that forgiveness is not just, I forgive you. It's not just the words. It's not just saying it and deciding, I'm going to say it and it'll be forgiven. That to me, forgiveness really involves the emotions and the parts of you that experience arises up. And does that make sense? Like it really, you have to honor your emotions, your feelings, and everything you have towards that person, process them, and then really transmute it into love in order to forgive. Because if you just say, I forgive you, and you're still feeling all this anger or sadness, betrayal, whatever it is, it's still inside of you. It has more to do with you. It's completely wrapped and enveloped in your sadness, your betrayal, how you feel, instead of, thinking this person is the problem. You might be the problem because you're not willing to let it go.
Yeah. Alan, what are your thoughts on that?
There's so many things floating around in my head around this. It's really easy to live in a space where you're angry at people because you have experiences that have affected your life. I was bullied a lot growing up. And the main bully was a person who was in my space every day at school, at church, all the time. And I came to an opportunity that I had to say, am I going to continue in this anger, or am I going to let it go? And I decided for me that I was going to let it go. And in all these years, this has probably been 35 years or so that I had that opportunity, I've not once had an angry feeling towards that person. And that was for me. However that affected him, is great, but for me, it released a lot of anger from my life. And the other thoughts that I have around that are, who are we to judge those other people? I don't know what's going on in their space. I don't know how their life has been affected by those around them. I don't know what their circumstances are, how hard their life has been. There's so many things out there that could have brought them to a place of anger or a place of whatever. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm holding on to that anger towards them, I'm not giving them that opportunity, or that, I call it Christ-like love, that opportunity to just love them for who they are. And so I think that's a big part of it, is stepping into the ability to love them for who they are. They're a child of God. Mm-hmm. They are someone who, just like me, has potential. They have these amazing opportunities to grow. And if I'm not allowing those for them here and out here, am I going to be that stopping point for them? Am I going to be the one who holds them back? Mm-hmm. And I don't ever want to be in that space. So I want to always make sure that I'm aware of that.
It's a really good insight. Something that I've found over the years is whenever I'm frustrated with somebody or angry with somebody at something they've done, it's largely because they're not meeting my expectations. They're acting in a way that I think they shouldn't. It's because I'm expecting them to be somebody different than who they are. Now, that may be justified, that, I can see potential in them. They could be better or different, but it's still tied to my judgment. And the emotions wrapped up around that are because I have a different expectation. So again, like you said, it has more to do with me than it does with them.
Yeah, I think that's really important to look at, as far as, especially within our family structure. We have expectations for our kids. We maybe our parents have expectations of us. I have expectations for how my parents will treat me. Or in a mentor situation in a business or at work, there's so many places. If you look at that opportunity to see those people differently and see those expectations differently, I really believe that anytime we're disappointed in someone, it's about us. It's really about what you said. It's the expectations. It's the things that we've created around who we think they should be, rather than allowing them the opportunity to be who they should be, or who they feel like they should be, following what God directs for them, rather than what we perceive that God would direct for them.
Yeah. And I think either, we expect them to be a certain way, or there's rules and guidelines given to us by society or family, generationally, whatever it is that's been created for us, an idea. They're not fitting into that. And so there's judgment. So I guess just challenging myself constantly to realize, okay, take away all the rules. Like, this is a person who has a contract with God that I know nothing about. And I may or may not, be a part of it, in it, and I'm okay with that. But really, is it fair for me to look at them as they are and not believe that that's exactly where they're supposed to be? That that's exactly who they're supposed to be, the choice they're supposed to be making. And, that's on them and God. And I want to honor that. So be where you are.
That's great. Vinney, what are the benefits, the advantages of, because loving everyone, honestly, it's not easy.
It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of practice. Recognize your opportunities to grow by recognizing when you're getting triggered by somebody, when someone's really bothering you. Most times when someone's bothering you, it has nothing to do with their actual behavior. It has everything to do with something about their behavior is mirroring something inside you. And that's what's triggering you. And that's an opportunity right there where you can say something like I say in my mind, oh, look at me over there doing that stupid thing, and that they're doing. And it's a good way in my mind, a little game in my mind, to allow me to get around that moment. But it also gives me this opportunity to reflect later. What was it about watching them do that bothered me so bad? and I can dive into my past, into my own behavior. And what's funny is if you dive deep enough, you're like, oh yeah, when I was 14, I was exactly like that. Mm-hmm. And that's why it was bothering me so bad, because I learned and grew from that. And I see someone else acting like that now, and I'm like, how can you not know? Because I think they're on my journey, but they're not. I'm on my journey. They're on their journey. And that's the easiest way for me, is to recognize that we're all on our own journeys. And love and forgiveness is a two-way street. You cannot have it one way. So if you want love, if you want forgiveness, you have to be willing to give it unconditionally to everyone.
And that makes me think of probably one of the most difficult aspects of loving everyone, and that's to love yourself.
That's the hardest one. That's the hardest one
Yep.
for everybody. And it's not just for a few of us, it's most of us. Mm-hmm. And anyone who says it's not, they're lying to themselves. Mm-hmm. Loving yourself is the hardest and the last one. It seems like that's the last to be served, is us, typically, our own self. Yeah.
Yeah, like you were saying, with the forgiveness. I mean, how often do we need to forgive ourselves for things that we've done in the past, baggage that we still carry, injuries that we've essentially brought upon ourselves, and we just never let it go? Yeah.
I think that ties in with what Vinney just said, or you see someone that's doing something exactly like you used to do it. It's more like that is waking up something in you of you not forgiving yourself of the past.
Absolutely.
The past version of you that's doing that thing.
Yep.
It's an opportunity, really, when you see that.
Yeah.
And when you're judging that person doing it, you're kind of judging yourself.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Alan?
I think that self-love piece is probably the hardest one to manage. Most people have a really difficult time seeing themselves as someone who is worthy of love, someone who is perfectly engineered by God for the experiences that we're having here. He sent us for a reason. He sent us to experience. Maybe that self-doubt and those things are part of the experience. We need to step into the idea that as children of God, we are loved. First and foremost, by the Creator. We are loved enough that He gave us this experience and this opportunity. So doubting ourselves, okay, yeah, we screw up. We don't do things exactly right. But again, I'm going to always go back to, what can I learn from this? How do I move forward? How do I step into the better parts of life, the better parts of me? Who can I better serve once I've learned these things?
I think I was just thinking when you were saying that really the concept of loving everyone. And you hear people say, you can't love anyone until you love yourself first. But really, when you break that down, it's like when you allow yourself to be authentic, your truest form, and honor your light, your dark, all of everything that makes up you, and begin to love yourself, it's that journey that enables you to see people as the same. Almost like you have to go through the same process. But first, you have to peel away all the layers, recognize who you are, and love and respect that person. Because then when you see somebody in their shadow, in their, whatever version of them that they're in at that point, you can honor them because you learned that with yourself.
And I think one of the key things is if we can get to the point where we can see people the way that God sees them, then we can love them the way that God loves them. And something that I've heard you say many times, Vinney, that I absolutely love is that there is nothing that you can do to make God love you any more or any less than God does, because that love is perfect and not tied to anything that we do. Now, granted, God may want more for us, may want us to learn and grow,
of course,
but that love never diminishes, and there's nothing we can do to diminish that.
And it's funny because I was raised thinking, and I don't know where I got it from, but I felt that God's love was a leverage system, and the more good I did, the more love I was getting from God, and the less good I did, the more wrath or anger I was getting from God. and there is no anger coming from God. It's love. It's all love, and it's unconditionally sent to all of us. When we're not feeling it, it's because we're not receiving it. We're blocking it.
I'd say that's a common conception with lots of people. They think
is.
the better person you are, the more love. The crappier person you are, the less
love.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe that's because of how we have reacted in relationships? When I'm better as a child, my parents give me praise. When I'm not good as a child, or what is perceived to be good as a child, I receive punishment or consequences. Consequences, that's a word we could play with all day long. We believe that consequences are always going to be negative, that the word consequence is negative. But the reality is it's just what happens when we make a choice. And so I think understanding that we all have opportunities to love each other, and that all of that stuff from our past doesn't have to play into how we treat each other and how we love each other. I love the analogy that we always use, and you hear it all the time. When you are on the plane, and if the oxygen masks drop, please put your own on first and then take care of the others. And we use that in everything, but it's true. You have to care for yourself. You have to honor yourself and be in a good place mentally and emotionally, and love who you are and understand who you are in order to truly love and care for others.
Yeah, there's a saying that I heard somebody say a few years back that stuck with me, and that is, treat yourself like someone you love.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah, I love that. One of the commandments that Christ gave in the scriptures was to love your neighbor as yourself. That indicates that part of that commandment is to love yourself. No matter what religion you are, you can learn from that. And it's amazing to understand that, hey, you are worthy and important enough to be loved.
That's interesting you say that. I'm glad you did, because for me at least, and maybe others, loving your neighbor, as I said, it's almost, to me, I thought that was service. Like, love your neighbor, go out and do for them and serve them, which I think it indicates that to some degree, but really, loving your neighbor, like Vinney was saying, we are all cut from the same cloth. We're all fingers on God's hand. Like, truly, that's what it means. Loving your neighbor is loving this person too.
And if we in this world had 100% authenticity everywhere we went, it would be really easy to love ourselves, because there's a lot of people out there really good at faking and putting on the perfect outside, putting on the perfect image of life is great, and inside there's turmoil and there's hurricanes, there's tsunamis, and just all sorts of dark emotion and energy. And if all of that was just open and honest with each other, then it would be very easy to love yourself, because you would see you're not the only one struggling with your journey. Everybody's struggling with their journey. Most people are.
Yeah, and most people get tripped up on things and, make choices that are hard to come back from sometimes. But really, some of my most connected moments with people have been connecting on, I made a mistake, or I made this, relating in some way to what we perceive as a negative choice or emotion, but really everyone's got them. So like, the quicker we can just be authentic about who we are,
get over it.
The more people we realize, like, hey, I'm similar to you. Like, let's talk about it. And
So as we've been talking today about loving everyone and how it's so vitally important, and it's a constant struggle. And I think when we talked earlier about forgiving yourself or forgiving others, that it's not a one and done. We just keep doing it over and over and keep practicing. As we practice, we get better at it, kind of like anything else. So as we wrapped up today, Alan, any last thoughts on loving everyone?
You said it's not something that happens overnight, and it's not something that is going to be easy. I can think of lots of people who I can say that I love them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I need to spend a lot of time with them, because that makes it harder for me to love them. Is that an okay way to put it?
And understanding that helps you love them.
And that doesn't make them a bad person or me a bad person. It just means that I know where that sits, and it allows me the grace and the opportunity to see them for who they are and know that I can interact there.
Well, it's good to be aware of those limits.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And so love everyone, but that doesn't mean you have to spend every waking hour with them.
Yeah.
100%.
Sometimes love from an arm's length. Yeah.
Yeah, allow yourself the understanding of who you are and who they are. That's part of loving them.
Yeah.
Vinney, anything you'd like to add?
You know, give yourself half the grace you give to the world. And that's where you start, and keep building. And there you'll start to love yourself, and then you'll be able to love others. So.
Lindsay?
Just piggybacking on Alan's concept, I love that, because really knowing your boundaries and limits on who you'd like to be around, who your energy is compatible with, that's loving yourself. That's an act of love to yourself, to set boundaries, but say, I love you from a distance. I have compassion and respect you from this part of the world, you know? But it helps to train your mind in saying, like, I love this person. I'm sending love. Like, it's okay. But I respect myself enough to know that being directly with them all the time is not healthy for me.
That's a good awareness. So thank you for joining us today on this episode of Living God's Light podcast. You can join, if you have any questions or would like to share any experiences you've had in loving people, feel free to add those in the comments. We will take a look at those and reply when we can. Also, livinggodslight.com, if you'd like to find ways to participate in the Living God's Light community and those discussions that we have there. We have a few different ways to participate in that, and those are always growing and evolving. So livinggodslight.com is a great place to go to see what we're doing today. So thank you, and next time we'll be talking about listening to your inner voice, and that's one of my favorite topics. Actually, they're all really great. I love that one. But thank you, and we look forward to catching you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Living God's Light podcast. You can help keep the show going through getting merch at livinggodslight.com, or contributing what you think the show is worth on our website, or by going through Patreon. Thank you for sharing your light with the world. You are making a difference, and we love you.